Sell me these headphones. Every industry and every aspect of life relies on sales. So what is the secret to succeed in selling? So Saad here has been in sales for over 10 years and he's gonna tell us some of his industry secrets. So Saad, so you've been in sales for 10 years?
Yeah, so back when I started in sales, I think my first selling was actually done when I was about 6-7 years old.
Wow.
And we were in Pakistan, and I sold this scooter that my sister had to some random metals guy who took spare parts and stuff.
Wow.
And I think that was my first experience trying to negotiate with him. Just for 80 rupees is what I sold it for. Even though it was
80 rupees.
Even though it was worth 100 dirhams.
5 cents?
Yeah. It's about 30, 40
I mean, at that
cents.
time, I guess the exchange rate was better.
I think at the time it was more about
10 cents.
What the goal was, right? The goal was candy. So
yeah,
at the time it worked. But I think, so since then, obviously had multiple different times in life, and then I started selling properly, and I went into sales when I was about 18, 19, about 10 years ago. And I think when it comes to sales, what's important is at any given point, whether it may be in your career, in your life, you're always selling something, right? You're either, if it's for a job, you're selling yourself to seem credible. If it's a product, you're selling the product. If it's to your partner, you're selling this part of you to attract this individual. But when we come down to business itself, I think what's important is to understand the role that sales plays. So sales is one of those functions in any given company. If at the end of the day you're not making money, which is the core,
you're not making the sales.
Yeah, you're not doing any, there's nothing happening. If there's no sales, the company does not exist. So it's very important to know, how are you selling? What are you selling? And what are the best tactics for it, right? So I think going through a few of them will give a much better understanding of sales.
Going through some of the tactics.
Exactly.
And are these tactics that you were taught, or you just developed, or you researched about?
I think what you're taught about sales, of create a pitch, know the box of the product, and sell it, and try to prospect as much as possible and keep following up. I think all of these tactics don't really produce as much results, right? So it's been over experience and obviously learning from mentors and stuff, you kind of realize that, hey, sales is very different from what we might think it is.
Okay, so what kind of things have you sold throughout your life? So you sold your sister's scooter when you were a kid, but then when you were older, what kind of things did you sell?
So my first sales experience was, I was doing lawn care services door to door. And I think this really shaped into what my career has led to, business development and partnerships.
And you were doing the lawn care?
Exactly. So the way it would work is we would show up to all of these houses, knock on the door.
Self-employed, no boss or...
No. It was for a company, but it was completely based on commissions, right? So there's no... all
salary
you have
or safety net or
exactly.
something.
So all you have is what you sell, and if you sell nothing, you go home with nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that really changes the game as well, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of sales today, and in most companies, they will have a base salary plus commissions. But when you're just relying on commissions, I think it really, really strengthens your ability to...
It obviously gives you a drive.
100%. Yeah. Right? And also there's the fear factor of you're going home with nothing. So this was
that also depends on the person's situation.
100%.
If they really don't have a safety net in their life.
Then and most people, if you're working a job, you don't have that safety net, right? So we would go around houses and tell them about the lawn care services and what the impact of poking holes in their grass would do to the rain and how it nourishes the grass for it to grow more and stuff. And so you're in a way, even at that time, it was like, how do you learn it as a story and then share it with them so it resonates with them? Whereas if I knock on the door and I'm just like, hey, I will help you with your grass, pay me $60, and this is really good for your grass. It's very different than if I came up to you and I'm just like, hey, you know, like, we support and like we've been helping with lawn care services, and I think with spring around the corner, this is a great time to make sure that the grass is ready and it has the nutrients and its ability to absorb the nutrients, right? Automatically it's like, I care for your grass. And I know it's a weird product, but at the end of the day, you almost need to make them feel like you care about them. So yeah, that was my first experience in sales. And then there's been prop tech, which so SaaS product that I sold. And then
What's prop tech?
so prop tech is any sort of like property technology platform, right? So where you
like
sell
real estate apps. And
real
stuff
estate,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So that was my second experience of getting on board real estate companies onto that platform, and then went into working at IKEA for a little bit. And there, obviously, you're not selling, you're just explaining, right? So it, again, helps with the techniques that have been developed over the way. And then I was doing contract manufacturing for products within consumer goods, so like body lotions, micellar water, baby wipes, makeup remover wipes, all of these things. So we would manufacture and private label them for these different brands. And then most recently, helping companies set up in Saudi and the whole aspect of how does a company get operational.
And that's like considered like a high ticket sale.
Exactly. Right.
So moving from like small sales to volume sales to high ticket sales.
Yeah. And I think each different type has a different approach and a different clientele altogether. Right. So I wouldn't even say, yes, the basics remain the same, but like there's multiple variables when you're selling, and also you start to differentiate between selling and consulting, right? And at this point where I'm at, it's a lot more consulting than selling.
And does sales and honesty work together?
I think that's very, very important.
So you do need to have honesty for sales to work?
Yes. And a lot of people will say, no, you know, you're trying to fool the client into like persuading them into doing something that they might not be ready to do, or they might not be willing to do. And I think honesty is, it's huge when you're actually pitching to these people. But we live in a world today where you could spot a salesperson from a mile away, right? And I think honesty is that differentiating factor of good salespeople to great salespeople.
And this is why like sales sort of gets a bad reputation as well. They're seen as like sleazy people.
They're always
who are
trying to manipulate
scamming,
you.
or
Yeah,
trying to
exactly.
cheat you or something. So why does sales have this reputation? Is it because many or most salespeople are dishonest, or is it just like a misconception that people just take selling something is a bad thing, or like what is the reason?
I think sales is one of those things that you're becoming a walking, talking advertisement, right? So you are the marketing, and marketing 101, you need to make the product look good, and you need to add hype around it, right? So I think, yes, there's I would say a majority of people in sales currently sell with incorrect, like unethical behavior.
A majority?
A majority, right?
In like all industries, all types of
I would
sales?
say almost all industries, right? Because their goal, their bottom line is that you buy the product. But then you'll have the few that their goal is
They have a conscience or integrity. Or
exactly, and it's just for me. I think one of my main rules is, would I be able to sell this to my dad the same way, or if someone sold it to my dad, would I be okay with it, right?
And apart from the person having a conscience or integrity, does honesty help financially in sales? Like, does dishonesty eventually catch up with a salesman? Or does lying actually get you more money? So if you didn't have a conscience or you didn't care, for example, and you were dishonest, could you just do really well? And like, if your objective is just to make as much money as possible at whatever cost, would dishonesty be the way to do that?
Yes and no. I think yes, because if you were able to scale that fast enough and keep on having these transactional relationships with like multiple different people, it would scale, but then you would lose your credibility in the market, right? And today, like I can at least speak about myself being in partnerships. A majority chunk of all the companies that I'm supporting today, they have come from referrals. And the value of honesty, the true impact of honesty is that you actually get returns in volumes without you having to put in more effort, right?
Like each customer, like the effort you put into one client or customer grows into like a deeper,
Exactly.
Instead of you putting the same effort into multiple. So it's more efficient, to be honest.
Pretty much, right? So if I've sold you something and I've been honest about it and it's actually a product that's adding value to your life in any way, tomorrow you will go to your friend and who might be looking for something similar and be like, hey, talk to this guy.
Have you seen, what are like the biggest lies or cheating that you've seen in all, like, whatever industries you've, even if you haven't personally been working or involved in that industry, like, what kind of big scams or lies have you seen, like, different, like, people, salesmen or companies doing?
I think scams go a long way. I remember.
I don't mean scams like those actual scams. I mean like proper sales that is like dishonest.
I think usually it's not dishonest, right? Usually it's
Deceptive.
exaggerated, right? It's just the way the pitch has gone has been where you could say, oh, we've supported 100 clients. You might say we've supported 400 clients, right? So it's usually exaggerated, or I think even at certain times not highlighting the downsides is in a way scamming them, right?
And in what kind of industry is this? Like, are you talking about like consulting or retail or like everything?
I think
business to business?
I think this exists in all different industries. Doesn't really matter what you're selling. You can cheat in any way, you know.
So what are like, are there any like different kind of sales tactics or tricks or hacks that you've learned or used along the way that aren't very well known?
Yeah. I think it's three main ones that have really been like a needle mover. And the first one is your ability to storytell, right? If you're selling a product, you almost need to put the customer in the driver's seat so that they could see it from that lens, right? So if I'm looking at selling to a, you know, if we go back to the prop tech, for example, it's how do I make sure that the real estate company understands the direct value that this will bring to their company, like being advertising their properties on this website will bring them X return, and X return needs to be based off of a client that you've worked with before, right? So it's your ability to really share a story rather than a pitch. And it's understanding what differentiates them mainly is a story is full of facts, a case study, something along those sides, rather than what you might have heard about the products that you're now passing on as information. A true pitch is something that they would not be able to Google about the product or service that you're selling. So that's the top one.
And what do you do if you feel like the person you're selling to is not interested, or if the person seems uninterested or more interested in a competitor product or service?
I think more important than them being interested, I think the true belief comes down to, are you interested in your own product, right? Because that's the step one. If you're not interested and if you're not excited and passionate about the product that you're selling, there's no way you can convince another person. Even if they're interested, they might lose interest, and if they're uninterested, then in the first, like, you wouldn't be able to convince them in the first place. In case they are uninterested, you're almost asking them questions to understand why not, right? So you move your pitch or your talk track from why buy this to why wouldn't you buy this, right? So an example of that is, like if I'm selling you this water bottle, I'm asking you, so generally, what might be some of the things that you have problems with when you're choosing your water of choice, right? Well, what is your main criteria that puts you off? Now I want to discuss more about the negatives instead of saying, hey, this is the best water, or you're almost going to the worst case scenario of what if they don't buy the product, right? And that then leads them to, because that's a very different way of selling, it leads them to be like, okay, why is this person talking to me this way, right? Or go off topic for a little bit. That's another tactic that might be able to work. Talk about another product, talk about something else. It doesn't even have to be a product. I think that the main thing is, where do they get interested in anything, is when you stop speaking to them like it's a conversation and start speaking to them like you're trying to sell to them.
Well, that's what makes them uninterested.
That's what makes them uninterested.
So how do you do that without... So if you at the end of the day, your goal is to sell them something. So how do you... So you have to just be really smooth with it, bring up...
You need to have a conversation about it, right? And today, everyone knows the triggers of sales. So when you're using those trigger words, they could see sales. And that's when they'll almost switch off. So if I'm trying to sell you water, I'm no longer just talking about this brand. I'm talking about water in general and the benefits of water, right? And regardless of what you might choose as your next bottle of choice, it still has benefits, right? And it's a conversation and you engage them. But that's what's important. It's not just focusing. Because if you can convince them to buy water, it's a lot easier to convince them to buy this bottled water. If they're not interested in buying water altogether,
then you shouldn't be trying to sell to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's part of where honesty comes in, because they might just not be thirsty, or
And you'd be better off using your energy on someone else.
Exactly.
Who is interested.
Yeah. So I think that's a good segue into what is the next best tactic, right? And this is in relation to pipeline. So in sales, you have a pipeline of what is the likelihood of any deal to sort of close, right? And knowing your pipeline is single-handedly the key to making sure that you're doing well in sales and you're selling efficiently. So I'll break it down like this. Think about a 3 buckets that any sort of potential lead or potential deal can be in. Okay, here are your 3 buckets. And the first bucket is where it's bronze. These guys have an interest in the product, but they're not sure when they would like to pursue. Or you might be speaking to someone who needs to convince another stakeholder internally of buying it, right? Or they're not fully convinced of buying it now. This is your bronze level, and right, like your bronze is a bucket of potential leads. Anyone in that phase, you have to nurture them differently, right? So then you have your bronze, you have your silver of yes, they're ready now. Yes, they're ready very, very soon, but they're not ready right now. They just still have a few more questions and stuff, but they will be ready because they have the capability, right? They have the capability now. So it's just a matter of time. And then you have your gold bucket of they're ready now, they meet all the requirements, they are my ideal customer.
So it's like the top and middle and bottom of the funnel sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? But it's knowing what it means and what it will take to fulfill that funnel. Right? So for bronze, because
you need maybe awareness.
Exactly. You're not speaking to them every day.
Yeah.
You might like engage with them. You might share an email or insights with them about something similar to the product, but not directly selling it all times, just making sure you're on top of mind. For your silver, you might want to see how you can build on that urgency that they already might think that they have. You want to focus and spend more time on them because that is what's going to bring you fruits next month or the month after. And then you have your gold, which is like your key, your prime clients that you know are ready to go now. So those are the ones that you want to make sure you give the best level of service to.
And they were probably in silver and bronze
Exactly.
at some point, and
Right.
maybe you nurtured them over to gold.
So A, it's how much to nurture and who to nurture and how to nurture. B is which bucket do you focus on and spend the most time towards, right? And that's always going to be the bucket that's closest to me getting money today. So it's really dive deep into how can you build those buckets so that you're not distracting yourself and trying to give equal time to all of them, right? Because the first layer of the funnel, no matter how much time and energy you gave to them, they might not have the capabilities, so irrespective. You're just giving them the wrong time, and maybe that's missing out from a golden nugget that's ready to kick off now. So I think another great way is another great challenge to be able to overcome is how do you turn a no into a yes, right? So a client might have said no. How do you then change that into a yes and potentially get them to buy? And it's very, very simple. Don't try to argue with the client and telling them why they're wrong for thinking that it's not the right fit.
So being pushy is a bad move.
100%, right? And don't try to convince them otherwise.
Because some people might think that being pushy is a good move.
Every salesperson will start pushing and they'll get desperate. But the main thing is taking a step back. As soon as they say no, great. Dive into the pain points. Understand why did they say no? Did they say no because of the price? Did they say no because of the quality? Did they say no because of XYZ reasons? Once you know that, you know exactly how to then tackle them, right? So if they said no for the price, then you then have to either show value for the price that they would be getting, or you need to almost do a competitive analysis of what they might be missing out, but are getting it with this price, right? So, or you might just give them a discount. But you will not know if you're just, boom, really, why not? Why don't you think this is good? Right? Ask constructive questions so you can get feedback that you can use.
Okay.
And then the last one, and I think this is very, very important, is selling through connection. And what that means is you need to build enough rapport with the person, because at the end of the day, people don't buy products, people buy people, right?
So you need to be like a people's person to get into sales.
Exactly. Really like be for the client and have normal human interactions and conversations with them, right? And build that level of rapport that, hey, you're not selling to them, you're advising them. You want to
like a friend.
Exactly. And that's what you want to become. Because what that leads to is tomorrow if I tell you buy this product, you'll definitely buy it.
Like it's way easier for you to tell your friend, hey, I think that t-shirt is really cool,
Exactly.
you should get it.
How many times have you
Compared
looked at your
to
friend?
if you're telling him, buy this t-shirt from me or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
So build that level of rapport that then gets you their vote.
And their trust.
Exactly.
And be honest so that your trust is like deserved legitimately, like is
Exactly.
yeah. Like that's the best way to earn trust.
Yeah.
And would you advise anyone to get into sales? And what kind of person would you advise to get into sales?
I think sales is a combination of art.
Of course, nothing is actual advice. In case, like,
I mean, I don't think you can get into sales, right? Sales, in my opinion, at least,
it's like
is
a personality trait.
A personality trait, but B, something that it could be worked on. But it's a combination of art and science mixed together. That's what sales really is, right? Because it's the understanding and knowing people. And it has a lot to do with psychology as well. It's understanding people. That's what sales is.
Yeah. So knowing if someone is actually interested or not.
Exactly. Understand a human being and be able to have that level of empathy that you could relate to them. So if you feel like you're an introverted person, I would probably say sales might not be the right fit for you, right? So who I would advise is someone who's extroverted and wants to share their feelings about a certain product with other people as well. And that's why it's very important that whether or not you are a person that can go into sales is secondary, but primary is what is the product that you will be selling. Because a great salesperson is always a great salesperson despite of the product. But if you have passion for the product, then you don't really need to be selling, you're just advising.
And what do you do as a salesperson if the product you're selling, like let's say you work for a company that sells many different products, and let's say cars or electronics, and you're a good salesperson, you're extroverted, you're good at talking to people and everything, and you're good at selling good products, but then there's some products that aren't good, but you have to sell them as part of your job. Like you can't tell someone that, oh, this is not a good car, or this is not a good computer, or something like that. So what's the solution to that?
I think, like in my opinion at least, it's continue with selling with integrity. And what that means is no matter what the product is, there's always going to be a buyer for it. That's what you need to understand. So just know if you say to two clients that you don't feel like the product is a good fit for them, there'll be a third one that might just be generated from those two that's the right fit. So continue on that path and continue advising. And obviously sometimes the lines can be blurred, but it's to focus on the integrity element, because that then drives into other aspects of your role as well, not just client facing, but also internally.
So would it be a good idea for someone who's a salesman to tell the customer, like, honestly, I don't think this is great. I think this has a lot of issues.
I think not a lot.
You're better off getting something from another brand, a competitor, for example. Or should he just...
I think that's an extreme level.
Or should he just do like, what is it, like lying by omission? Like not saying anything, just saying the good things?
I wouldn't divert them to another product, right? But I would give them all the facts of the product, right? So if you are a car salesperson and the seats in the back are actually small for the three other kids that would be sitting, it's good to highlight the fact that, you know what, like there are seats in the back. However, they might be a little bit tight, so they can only be used for kids of this age, right? That's, you're not telling them not to get it. You're still highlighting the benefit, but you're just kind of explaining them from a holistic perspective.
Okay, Saad, so thank you very much for these tips about sales and everything. And hopefully we'll do another video soon about negotiation, the art of negotiation skills. So stay tuned for that, and don't forget to like and comment and subscribe and let us know your thoughts below. And we'll see you in the next video.